If you're still planning on buying and building your PC, I have the usual bad news that we're used to hearing for the last year, but I also have a little bit of good news. So let's talk about what that is. Hey guys, Tiago with Classical Technology here. Some say every time you smash that like button, a little bit more good news gets shifted away from the bad news. So let's talk about what's on everybody's mind, and I like to do these occasional updates on building your computer or upgrading your computer, just because things are changing at such a rapid pace that sometimes it seems from week to week the situation will be completely different. So a few days ago, I actually posted a poll here on YouTube. I asked pretty much my viewers a couple of different questions. Basically, it boiled down to, have you given up on PC gaming, or maybe you're still playing with your old hardware, maybe you got what you wanted and you're pretty happy, or maybe you're still searching for whatever it is that you wanted. Almost 8,000 of you voted, and it seems like almost everybody is still trying to do PC gaming. Not everybody's going to be in the same boat, of course, since not everybody was able to get their hands on the newest hardware, but it seemed like very few of you, it seems like maybe at most 5%, are considering giving up PC gaming in general. So that's definitely very good news, because after all of the ups and downs that we've had, especially with the GPUs and a little bit with CPUs as well, during the last year, from availability problems to price increases, most of you seem to be toughening it out, and that's exactly what we want to see. Eventually, we hope that things are going to be better, but that was definitely a bit of positive news. Now, I'm sure even within that 5% that just basically is giving up on PC gaming, I'm sure maybe some of them were able to get their hands on some of the newer consoles. Ironically, those are also very difficult to get. I actually found it a lot more difficult to get a PlayStation 5 than even something like the RTX 3070 or 3090. So certainly it seems like you'll get some people going towards the consoles, and there's really nothing wrong with that, as they seem to be performing very well this generation as well. The only issue there, of course, they seem to be just as sold out as a lot of the PC components that we've seen lately. So first, let's touch on some of that good news. It seems like some CPUs, especially from Ryzen 5000, definitely are becoming more and more available. For example, if you guys happen to have a local Micro Center, and I know not everybody does, it's basically just a US thing, but often if they're not getting any hardware at all, then you know the situation is pretty bad. But when they start to get more consistent stock of hardware, you know at least that it's improving, and usually it will show up somewhere online as well, like Newegg or Amazon. Eventually that gets out and it gets spread out a little bit more. So it seems like at least some of the Ryzen 5000 CPUs have become a little bit more readily available. For example, if you want the 5600X, it seems like a lot of stores have 25 plus in stock, and I've even seen a little bit more consistent drops on things like Newegg and Amazon for people that do not locally have a Micro Center. Now, keep in mind that for the most part, the online drops do go very quickly, but in some cases they stay up longer, and you're gonna have to potentially pay a little bit more than the $299 MSRP for something like a 5600X. I've seen it on Amazon for as much as like $397. Generally, I really don't think you should be paying more than MSRP, but if you really need that component to finish your rig, and it's not like a crazy amount where it's like double the price or something like that, if you feel it's reasonable for your budget, really nothing wrong with getting it, as these CPUs as well as the GPUs we're going to talk about later definitely will have a pretty long shelf life. I think eventually you'll be able to easily sell them down the road whenever you decide to upgrade. So at least in that sense, it's definitely something you're going to have to put up with these higher prices across the board. So basically, on that same trip to Micro Center, they actually did have some GPUs in stock, which is partly good news and partly bad news. The reason why most of these GPUs are in stock, it definitely seems to do with the higher MSRP prices. So this is going to be a bit of a double-edged sword. So basically, the only NVIDIA GPU that they happened to have in stock when I walked in was an RTX 3070 MSI Supreme X, and this was going for well over $800. I actually did a video on this particular GPU, and while it felt a little bit wrong paying $850 for what basically is an RTX 3070, which was supposed to have an MSRP of only $499. So that's over a $300 markup, pretty considerable. Of course, this is a little bit beefier version, the MSI Supreme X. It would definitely have a premium already anyway, but that's certainly a more significant premium than we ever expected to see, surpassing even the MSRP of the RTX 3080. Now, the other GPUs that they had in stock, and they had actually quite a few two of these were the Power Color, the Red Devil. These are going to be the AMD 6800 and the 6800 XT. Now, I think primarily the reason that they had a lot of these in stock, first, people definitely tend to go more towards the NVIDIA GPUs like 3070s and 3080s. And secondly, the prices were very high, over $900 for a 6800, which initially had an MSRP of $579, and the 6800 XT was over $1,000. I think it was closer to like $1,100 or something like that, which is a very high price for a GPU that's supposed to be $649. And in fact, it's even considerably more than the MSRP of a $999 6900 XT. Of course, those now are over $1,500, some upwards of $1,700 or $1,800, basically equaling or surpassing the price of the RTX 3090 when that initially launched. So it seems there is a bit of a trend developing. The GPUs are a little bit less desirable, but their prices have still been pumped up a considerable amount. You definitely can find them a little bit easier, even online when they do drops of like 3090 or something like that on Newegg or different venues that aren't a brick and mortar store. You can definitely have a little bit of a chance, maybe upwards of a minute or two to buy some of these 3090s, simply because the prices are pretty outrageous. Most of them have gone well over $2,000. And that's even for like a vanilla 3090, something from like a PNY or something from Zotac, something that isn't something really high end that you would expect to pay $2,000 for. And if people already didn't really like the 3090 at the $1,500 MSRP, because it doesn't really provide that great price to performance ratio, at over $2,000, it's even worse of a proposition. But unfortunately, since it seems to be the one that's more readily available compared to especially the 3080, it seems like a lot of people just had to basically suck it up and buy one of these more expensive GPUs. And that's certainly going to be one of the points that are perhaps bad and negative, even though there does seem to be some availability opening up with certain GPUs. Basically, with everything that you want to get now, you're going to be paying considerably more than the old MSRP. You have to basically forget that number completely. Before, when that MSRP came out, scalper prices seem to be pretty close to what the MSRP is now. In some cases, new MSRP seems to be even higher than scalpers were charging for 3070s, 3080s, for the AMD GPUs. So it seems like you have to completely forget the old MSRP and just deal with the fact that these GPUs are just this expensive. And I've done a few videos detailing why the prices went up so much. Of course, primarily the factors are going to be the exemption on the tariffs expired at the beginning of the year. Therefore, a lot of GPUs went up 20 to 25% just due to that. And of course, continuing manufacturing issues because of the entire worldwide situation. And of course, we can't forget cryptocurrency mining. That, along with gamers being at home more, has driven an insane amount of demand. And of course, the companies realize this, and they also realize that people will pretty much readily pay most prices that they ask for on these GPUs. Of course, with a few outlier GPUs staying in stock longer. Like we mentioned, some of these really expensive GPUs, like maybe a 3090, some of them will stay in stock a little bit longer, but even they seem to sell out fairly quickly compared to if this was like a normal market situation. So you do have a better chance at getting those. So I think pretty much most of the manufacturers for these GPUs really have had no problems in raising these prices, because as for now, people, of course, they're kind of complaining about it, but they're still buying them. So 2021 in general so far still seems like a pretty terrible time to try to get a GPU. For the most part, the really desirable GPUs, especially like the 3080 that seems to be the most popular, those seem to be pretty much non-existent. They seem very difficult to get, and pretty much on everything else, even the less desirable GPUs, you're going to be paying considerably higher prices. So that continues to be a major issue. But if you want to look for a sliver of good news, you can get certain GPUs at certain inflated prices, but that's pretty much the best that you're going to be able to do for now, unless you get lucky and you happen to catch a drop of one of these more desirable GPUs. So what do the next couple of months hold? What does the future hold? Is it more good news? Is it more bad news? Well, a couple of new GPUs are being released. The closest that we are right now to a new GPU release is going to be the 3060 with 12 gigabytes of VRAM. That's supposed to come out, I believe, around February 25th. MSRP of around $329. But of course, don't expect to see that MSRP. We've even seen some reports that some European sellers are selling them already for almost double that amount. So we can see this be a very expensive expensive GPU, especially with 12 gigabytes of VRAM. It may be very attractive to certain buyers, maybe even cryptocurrency miners. So this GPU certainly won't stop the trend of very little supply with high prices, but it certainly is another SKU out there, and hopefully let's see if they can produce a little more of these chips to at least try to keep up with some of this demand. Then of course everybody's waiting for the 3080 Ti. That keeps getting pushed back and changed. There's some recent rumors that it may go from the 20 gigabytes of VRAM that it originally was going to have, maybe down to as little as 12 gigabytes of VRAM. So we really don't know what's going on with that GPU at this time. 20 gigabytes of VRAM is very close to the 3090, and certainly with the 3090 being over $2,000 now, that's really going to cannibalize a lot of those sales. So it would make more sense for them to price a 3080 Ti perhaps with 12 gigabytes of VRAM closer to a 3080. That way, for certain buyers and certain use cases, the 3090 still will be a little bit more of an attractive option, especially if it has twice the amount of VRAM. All right guys, so good luck hunting for a GPU out there. I'm glad to hear that most of you have not given up on PC gaming. Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next video.